Hello, aspiring time traveller. Get ready to ditch your memory foam, because we're about to plunge headfirst into a world where everything you thought you knew about love and relationships gets gloriously, hilariously, and surprisingly turned on its head. Forget everything your history teacher told you about ancient civilizations being stuffy and repressed. Ancient Egypt, they were basically the free-spirited, open-minded rebels of the ancient world. Welcome to ancient Egypt, where normal is backwards. When the Greek historian Herodotus first stepped off that boat onto Egyptian soil, he basically lost his mind. Imagine visiting a place where everything you thought was normal is completely backwards. That's exactly what Egypt was for him. He straight up accused them of reversing the ordinary practices of mankind. Marriage, love, public affection, all of it seemed upside down to this poor guy. And honestly, he wasn't entirely wrong. The way Egyptians approached relationships was pretty wild compared to other ancient civilizations. You see, the Greeks kept their women practically locked away, shrouded in mystery, barely allowed out of the house. Egyptian women, on the other hand, they were out and about, running businesses, making deals, and generally living their best lives with a shocking amount of freedom. It was like a cultural slap in the face for poor old Herodotus, who probably went home and immediately wrote a sternly worded letter to his local philosopher about the moral decay of the world. Oh, and if you're enjoying these stories, I'd really appreciate a like or subscribe. It helps me know you're out there, listening. I'm super curious where you're all listening from, so drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. It always blows my mind how people are falling asleep to this all over the world, from a cozy evening in Bucharest to a bright morning on the other side of the planet. Knowing that you're drifting off to tales of ancient romance makes my day. Alright, find that cozy spot, take a nice slow breath, and just let your body sink into whatever you're lying on. We're heading back to ancient Egypt, so congratulations. You just woke up in the land of pharaohs, pyramids, and surprisingly progressive relationships. The first thing that hits you is the heat. Not the gentle warmth of modern central heating, but that bone-deep desert heat that makes your skin prickle with sweat almost instantly, as if your pores are staging a tiny protest. You're lying on a reed mat that crackles beneath you, a far cry from your memory foam mattress back home. Through the small window cut high into the mud brick wall, you can see the sky is just beginning to lighten, turning that distinctive Egyptian blue that artists have tried to capture for centuries, a blue so intense it almost hums. The smells around you are just as intense. There's the earthy scent of the Nile, a muddy sweetness that seems to permeate everything, clinging to the very air. Closer, you catch whiffs of cooking fires starting up outside, the tantalizing aroma of bread baking somewhere nearby, promising a simple but satisfying breakfast. And then there's another, more exotic smell, the distinct aroma of kefi incense burning in a small copper dish near the door. It's a mixture of myrrh, frankincense, and raisins, a concoction that was supposed to please the gods and purify the home, though you suspect it also did a pretty good job of masking the less pleasant odours of village life. You sit up, and your bare feet touch the packed earth floor, surprisingly cool against your skin despite the growing heat of the day. Outside, you hear voices calling to each other, the rhythmic clatter of pottery as someone prepares for the day's tasks, and the distant bray of a donkey pulling a cart, the soundtrack of ancient morning life. Life is already bustling, and the sun has barely kissed the horizon. Welcome to Egypt. The year is, well, Egyptians wouldn't recognize our calendar system, but let's say it's around 1400 BCE, during what we now call the New Kingdom. This was the era of legendary pharaohs like Akhenaten, Tutankhamun, and the formidable Hatshepsut, a woman who ruled Egypt as a king, beard and all. You're about to learn something pretty fascinating about this place. Love and marriage here aren't what you'd expect at all. Now, if you're lying there thinking about all those History Channel documentaries about Egyptian pharaohs marrying their sisters and weird incest stuff, I'm going to stop you right there. Yes, royal marriages were often between siblings, a way to keep the royal bloodline pure and consolidated power within the ruling family. But that was basically just for the royal family. The top 1% of the 1%. Regular folks like you and me? totally different story. For most ancient Egyptians, marriage was surprisingly practical, yet deeply personal. A fascinating mix of business arrangement and genuine affection that would honestly put some modern relationships to shame. They weren't afraid to blend the pragmatic with the passionate. So, here's the first thing that would have blown Herodotus's mind, and probably yours too. Marriage in ancient Egypt wasn't a religious ceremony at all. In fact, there wasn't even a ceremony. No white dress, no walking down the aisle, no "you may now kiss the bride," no awkward speeches from distant relatives. None of that pomp and circumstance. You shift slightly on your reed mat, finding a more comfortable position, the sounds of the waking village continuing outside your window, women talking as they head to the Nile for water, the cheerful laughter of children, the rhythmic scraping of dough being kneaded for the morning bread, a reassuring symphony of daily life. Basically, here's how Egyptian marriage worked. When a young man was ready, usually around 16 to 20 years old, he'd look for a partner. Girls were typically younger, often just after their first menses, around 12 to 14. Young by our standards? Sure. But when life expectancy was a grim 30 to 35 years for common folk, you didn't exactly have time to spend a decade finding yourself before settling down and producing heirs. Time was of the essence. You stretch and stand up, your joints cracking pleasantly, a little protest from your ancient body. Across the small room, a clay jar of water sits waiting. You dip a cloth into it and wipe the night sweat from your face and neck. The water is cool against your skin, a small mercy in this relentless heat. The most important thing for marriage wasn't love, at least not initially. It was stability. A man needed to have a job, some kind of income, his own house, a basic foundation for a family. Women weren't expected to bring financial stability to the marriage, but they did bring essential domestic skills and often a dowry of household items, things like linens, pottery, furniture, maybe even a few prized cooking implements. When families agreed on a match, and yes, parents usually had a major say, acting like ancient matchmakers, they'd draw up what was essentially a prenuptial agreement. This contract laid out what property each person brought into the marriage, and, crucially, what would happen to it if things didn't work out. Pretty modern, right? It showed a remarkable foresight for protecting women's assets. But here's where it gets really interesting. Once all the negotiations were done, there was no big ceremony, no priest blessing the union, no signatures on a marriage certificate. The woman simply gathered her belongings and moved into the man's house. That's it. That was the whole wedding. The moment she crossed his threshold with her stuff, they were considered married, as legally binding as any modern ceremony. Outside your window, you notice a young woman carrying a small wooden chest toward a house down the street. Following her are two older women with baskets of linens, pottery, and other household goods. You're witnessing exactly this. A new bride moving her possessions into her husband's home, the beginning of a marriage, ancient Egyptian style. The young woman looks nervous but excited, clutching a small carved bird in her free hand, perhaps a good luck charm. The neighbours have come out to watch and call good wishes, their voices blending into a cheerful murmur. There's a festive atmosphere, even without a formal ceremony. A few musicians have appeared, playing simple reed flutes and small hand drums, their melodies weaving through the morning air. The rhythm is hypnotic, a gentle pulse that seems to match the beating of your own heart as you watch this intimate slice of history unfolding before you. Your body feels heavy and comfortable as you lean against the cool mud brick wall, observing this scene from across the millennia. Now, you might be thinking, this all sounds pretty transactional. And yeah, there was definitely a practical aspect to it. Marriage was about alliances, producing heirs, and creating a stable household unit in a challenging environment. But here's the thing that made Egyptian marriage different from a lot of other ancient cultures, and truly revolutionary for its time. Women had rights, like serious rights. Rights that women in Greece or Rome or basically anywhere else wouldn't get for thousands of years. For starters, that prenuptial agreement we talked about. It protected the woman's property. Whatever she brought into the marriage remained hers. The husband couldn't touch it. She could also inherit property from her parents independently of her husband, and she could buy and sell property without his permission. This meant an Egyptian woman could be a landowner, a businesswoman, an independent economic force, a stark contrast to her counterparts in other ancient societies, where women were often legally considered property themselves. You decide to follow the small wedding procession, your bare feet padding softly on the packed earth of the street, the fine dust rising slightly with each step. The heat is building as the sun climbs higher, and you can feel sweat beginning to trickle down your back, a constant companion in this climate. The smell of bread baking, now mingled with the tantalizing aroma of roasting fish, makes your stomach rumble. You haven't eaten yet today, and the thought of food is a powerful motivator. The crowd turns down another street, a narrow alleyway that provides some blessed shade, and you follow, drawn by the music and the contagious cheer of the celebration. You feel your shoulders relax a bit as you escape the direct sun, a small moment of relief. What's really wild is that Egyptian women could divorce their husbands just like that. If things weren't working out, a woman could simply leave, taking all her original property plus a divorce settlement that was usually about 1/3 of the marital assets. In a world where women were basically considered property themselves in most places, this was revolutionary. Imagine Herodotus's face when he heard that. Of course, men could divorce their wives too, but they'd have to pay up. And either way, any children from the marriage would stay with the mother. The father might provide some support, but custody defaulted to mom. Again, mind-blowing for the ancient world. This legal framework suggests a society that placed significant value on the well-being and autonomy of women, a concept almost unheard of elsewhere. The procession has stopped at a modest but well-kept house, its mud brick walls adorned with fresh paint in vibrant blues and reds. The young bride is being welcomed by her new husband, a man perhaps a few years older than her, his face flushed with a mixture of nervousness and eagerness to please. He looks like he just won the lottery, which, in a way, he has. His friends are clapping him on the back, making jokes that make him blush even deeper. The bride's mother is wiping away tears, but they seem to be happy ones, tears of pride and relief. You lean against a wall across the street, your body feeling pleasantly heavy as you observe this intimate moment, this simple beginning happening before you. This simple, ceremony-free wedding is the foundation of Egyptian family life, a bedrock of community and tradition. But the really interesting thing about Egyptian marriage wasn't just the legal stuff. It was the emotions. Despite marriages often being arranged for practical reasons, Egyptians actually valued romantic love a lot. It wasn't just a byproduct, it was an aspiration. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the rough texture of the mud brick wall against your back, grounding you in this ancient moment, connecting you to the lives lived here thousands of years ago. When you open them again, the bride and groom are sharing a shy smile. Despite all the practical arrangements that brought them here, there's a genuine warmth between them, a spark of affection that promises something deeper. The evidence for love in ancient Egypt is everywhere once you start looking. Their poetry is full of it, passionate, romantic verses that could rival anything from Shakespeare to your favourite modern love song. Imagine hearing this. To hear your voice is pomegranate wine to me. I draw life from hearing it. Could I see you with every glance, it would be better for me than to eat or to drink. Beautiful, right? This kind of love poetry was incredibly popular, especially during the New Kingdom period. Egyptians loved to express their feelings about each other, and they weren't shy about physical affection either. They were surprisingly tactile. As you watch, the new husband takes his wife's hand and leads her into their home. The threshold moment, the actual marriage in Egyptian terms, has already happened, but this entrance together is clearly meaningful to them both, a symbolic step into their shared future. The crowd cheers, the musicians play more enthusiastically, and someone breaks out jars of beer to share around. You can almost taste the thick, slightly sweet Egyptian beer in the air. It was much heartier than our modern beers, more like a meal in a jar, often flavoured with dates or honey, and surprisingly nutritious. The celebration is getting livelier now, and you feel your own spirits lifting as you watch, a warmth spreading through you that has nothing to do with the sun. Now, here's another fascinating thing about Egyptian marriage. They believed it continued into the afterlife. Egyptians were obsessed with eternity, right? All those pyramids and mummies and elaborate tombs. Well, they thought a good marriage would last forever, literally. Couples were often buried together, or in adjoining tombs. with paintings showing them holding hands, embracing, sometimes even with their children around them, a beautiful tableau of eternal family life. That's why being a good spouse was so important. Nobody wanted to be stuck with a jerk for all eternity. This belief actually encouraged people to work on their relationships and treat each other well because, hey, till death do us part wasn't a thing. It was forever and ever, including the afterlife. It put a whole new spin on marital counselling. The wedding celebration is spreading now, with neighbours bringing out food to share. The scent of fresh bread, roasted fish from the Nile, and sweet honey cakes fills the air. Your stomach growls again, a polite but firm reminder that you still haven't eaten. A kind-looking older woman, her face lined with a lifetime of sun and smiles, notices you standing alone and gestures for you to join them. You hesitate. You're not exactly dressed in period-appropriate clothing. Your modern attire would be anachronistic to say the least. But her smile is so welcoming that you find yourself moving forward anyway. She presses a piece of warm, fresh bread into your hand. It's denser than modern bread, with a nutty flavour from the coarse ground emmer wheat it's made from. The crust is perfectly crisp, the inside still steaming. It might be the most delicious thing you've ever tasted, or maybe it's just the magic of eating bread that was baked 3,400 years ago, a literal taste of history. Your body feels increasingly heavy and comfortable as you eat, the simple pleasure of good food and friendly company washing over you, a profound sense of peace. You find a spot to sit on a low stone wall, your muscles relaxing as you continue to observe the celebration, feeling fully immersed in this ancient moment. Love, lust and lotus flowers, the bedroom and beyond. Let's talk about what happened in the bedroom, because that's where things get really interesting, and probably where poor Herodotus truly needed a fainting couch. Unlike many ancient cultures, and honestly plenty of modern ones, Egyptians had a pretty healthy attitude towards sex. They saw it as a natural, normal part of life, not something shameful or solely for procreation. It was a source of pleasure, connection and joy. And this is where poor Herodotus really lost it. Egyptians were openly affectionate with each other. They held hands in public, embraced, and generally weren't shy about showing their feelings. This was shocking to Greeks like Herodotus, who lived in a society where women were basically kept secluded, veiled, and public displays of affection were a big no-no, considered scandalous. The music has shifted to a slower, more sensual rhythm. A few couples have begun dancing, their movements fluid and graceful. It's not the highly choreographed dancing of temple ceremonies, but something more natural and spontaneous, an expression of joy and connection. The newly married couple joins in, clearly a bit shy with each other still, but moving together with increasing confidence, their movements mirroring each other. You feel your own body swaying slightly to the rhythm, the weight of it pleasantly heavy against the stone wall where you sit. The bread sits warm in your stomach, and someone has handed you a small cup of beer. It's thick and rich, almost like a meal in itself, with a tangy sweetness that's nothing like modern beer. What's more, premarital sex wasn't taboo in ancient Egypt. There's no direct word for virgin in the ancient Egyptian language, which tells you a lot about their attitudes. Young people were expected to explore their sexuality before marriage. It wasn't stigmatized, especially for women. Can you imagine how revolutionary this would seem to Herodotus, or pretty much any other ancient civilization that prized female virginity above all else? Of course, once you were married, fidelity was important. Both husbands and wives were expected to be faithful to each other. Adultery was considered a serious offence, though it was defined somewhat differently for men and women. A married woman sleeping with anyone other than her husband was adultery. For men, sleeping with another man's wife was adultery, but having relations with an unmarried woman wasn't seen the same way. A bit of a double standard perhaps, but still more progressive than many contemporaries. The dance continues, growing more energetic. The bride and groom are laughing now, their initial shyness giving way to uninhibited joy. Their bodies move in harmony, already learning each other's rhythms, a beautiful and organic unfolding of their partnership. It's beautiful to watch this beginning of a partnership that will shape their lives. You sip your beer slowly, feeling the pleasant weight of your body against the wall, the gentle fatigue of the day settling into your muscles. The afternoon sun casts long shadows now, and the quality of light has changed, that magical golden hour that photographers chase. A warm, soft glow that bathes the village in a benevolent light. Speaking of expectations in marriage, let's talk about children. Like most ancient societies, Egyptians wanted children. Lots of them. High infant mortality rates meant that having many children was the best way to ensure some survived to adulthood. But unlike other ancient cultures, Egyptians valued daughters almost as much as sons. Almost, but not quite. Sons were still preferred for carrying on the family name and taking care of parents in their old age, but daughters were valued too, seen as blessings and important members of the family unit. And female infanticide, the horrifying practice of killing unwanted baby girls, doesn't seem to have been a thing in Egypt, like it was in many other ancient cultures. Another point for ancient Egypt: the party is winding down now as evening approaches. The bride and groom have retreated into their new home, probably for some well-deserved rest, and neighbours are beginning to drift away, their conversations softening to murmurs. The musicians pack up their instruments, accepting thanks and payment from the bride's father, who looks utterly exhausted, but content. You finish your beer, feeling pleasantly tired now, your limbs feeling heavy, your eyelids wanting to droop, a gentle invitation to sleep. The stone wall beneath you is still warm from the day's heat, comforting against your back, radiating a gentle warmth. But before we wrap up this first part of our journey into Egyptian love and marriage, there's one more fascinating aspect to explore: fertility and pregnancy. Egyptians had a weird but surprisingly effective method for determining if a woman was pregnant. She would pee on barley and emmer wheat seeds. If the barley sprouted, she was supposedly pregnant with a boy. If the emmer wheat sprouted, it would be a girl. If neither sprouted, she wasn't pregnant at all. Here's the crazy part. Modern scientists have tested this, and it actually works about 70% of the time for detecting pregnancy, though not for predicting gender. Turns out, pregnancy hormones in urine can indeed stimulate seed growth. They were accidentally onto something. The streets are quieter now as dusk falls. Oil lamps are being lit in windows, casting a warm, flickering glow, turning the mud brick houses into inviting beacons. The temperature is finally dropping, bringing blessed relief from the day's heat. A cool balm after the sun's relentless embrace. Your body feels increasingly heavy, sinking into a pleasant state of relaxation, your muscles loosening. Childbirth itself was dangerous business, of course. It was handled by midwives, not physicians, and was viewed as a natural process rather than a medical event. Women gave birth in a squatting position on special birthing bricks, surrounded by other women who would provide support and encouragement. Amulets and prayers to gods like Taweret, a hippo goddess who protected mothers and children, and Bes, a dwarf god who scared away evil spirits, were essential parts of the process, a blend of practical support and spiritual protection. If a child survived to age 5, they could generally look forward to a decent lifespan for the ancient world, about 30 to 35 years for common folks, and up to 50 to 60 years for the upper classes, who had better nutrition and didn't have to do hard physical labor. As darkness falls completely, the village grows quiet. Only the occasional bark of a dog or a distant laugh breaks the silence, a gentle hum of life. The stars above are brilliant in a way you never see in the modern world, unpolluted by electric lights. The Milky Way stretches across the sky like a river of stars, a cosmic mirror of their beloved Nile, and you can understand why the Egyptians saw the sky as a cosmic extension of their life-giving river. Your body feels incredibly heavy now, sinking into the ground beneath you, becoming one with the earth. Your breathing has slowed, becoming deep and regular. The sights and sounds of ancient Egypt are fading slightly as your awareness turns inward. You feel yourself drifting, floating on the current of history. The warm stone against your back, the lingering taste of bread and beer on your tongue, the distant music still echoing in your ears. All of it merges into a gentle cocoon of sensation. Tomorrow, we'll explore more about Egyptian love and marriage, the poetry they wrote to each other, the perfumes they wore to seduce their partners, the elaborate tombs they built to be together for eternity. But for now, you're here in this moment, your body relaxed and comfortable, your mind full of images of a world where love and marriage looked very different from our own. The gentle weight of history settles around you like a comfortable blanket. Your breathing deepens further. The stars wheel slowly overhead, the same stars that watched over ancient Egypt, that will continue to watch over our world long after we're gone. There's comfort in that continuity, that connection across time. Your limbs feel pleasantly heavy, your thoughts growing slower and more dreamlike. The sounds of the village have faded to almost nothing now, just the occasional rustle of palm fronds in the night breeze. Your body feels at peace, sinking deeper into relaxation with each breath as the story of ancient Egyptian love and marriage continues to unfold in your mind, a timeless tale of human connection. The morning sun climbs higher over the mud brick houses, casting long shadows across the narrow streets. You've woken early, your body attuned to the rhythms of this ancient world, where most activity happens before the brutal midday heat sets in. The air still holds a hint of coolness from the night, a fleeting memory of the cool darkness, but it's already evaporating like a dream upon waking, replaced by the creeping warmth of the new day. You stretch, feeling your muscles loosen pleasantly, the last vestiges of sleep melting away. The reed mat beneath you crackles as you sit up, that same earthy smell of the Nile hanging in the air, mingled now with the scent of cooking fires and fresh bread. Your stomach rumbles, a gentle reminder that it's time to find something to eat. Outside, women are already lined up at the communal bread ovens, chatting as they wait for their loaves to bake, their voices a soft murmur. Children dart between houses, playing some game involving small clay tokens, their laughter echoing cheerfully. A couple walks past, their hands casually intertwined, and you remember what you learned yesterday about Egyptian attitudes toward affection and marriage, a refreshing openness you hadn't expected. Speaking of marriage, there's something fascinating about the actual process of finding a spouse in ancient Egypt. While parents often had significant input, acting as wise guides, young people weren't completely without choice. And the courtship process? Honestly, it wasn't that different from modern dating in some ways. Minus the dating apps, of course. You make your way to a small market that's sprung up in a wider section of the street. Vendors have laid out mats with goods for sale, vibrant vegetables, glistening fish from the Nile, colourful beads, simple tools, woven baskets, a tapestry of daily life. You accept a piece of flatbread from a smiling woman who seems to recognise you from yesterday's wedding celebration, her eyes twinkling with warmth. The bread is still warm, slightly chewy, with a nutty flavour that speaks of a simpler, purer grain than modern wheat. As you chew slowly, savouring the unfamiliar yet comforting taste, you notice a young man and woman standing near a stall, selling flowers and perfume oils. They're not touching, but the way they look at each other speaks volumes, a silent language of burgeoning affection. He purchases a small blue lotus flower and offers it to her. She accepts it with a shy smile, bringing it to her nose to inhale its delicate fragrance, a gesture of quiet delight. You're witnessing Egyptian courtship in action. Blue lotus flowers were powerful symbols of love and fertility, associated with rebirth and the sun. They were also mildly psychoactive, producing feelings of relaxation and euphoria when brewed into wine or tea. Not exactly a box of chocolates, but definitely a romantic gesture, and one with added benefits. Your body feels comfortable and at ease as you lean against a mud brick wall, observing this moment across the centuries. The rough texture of the bricks against your back is strangely soothing, grounding you in this ancient reality, connecting you to the very fabric of this past world. Courtship in ancient Egypt involved gifts like flowers, jewellery, or love poems written on papyrus or pottery shards. Young people might meet at religious festivals or family gatherings, or be introduced by their parents. There were no formal dating rituals with specific rules, but there were definitely ways to show interest and attraction, a subtle dance of signals and gestures. The couple has moved on now, walking close together without quite touching, a delicate intimacy. They stop occasionally to look at other market stalls, clearly enjoying this simple time together before marriage might formalise their relationship and the responsibilities of family life set in. You finish your bread and decide to follow them at a respectful distance, Curious about this glimpse into ancient romance, your feet move quietly on the packed earth of the street, your body feeling pleasantly heavy and relaxed despite the growing heat of the day. What's particularly interesting about Egyptian courtship is how straightforward it could be. If a young man was interested in a woman, he might send a female relative as a go-between to speak with her mother. If the initial response was positive, gifts would follow, and eventually the families would meet to discuss more practical matters, laying the groundwork for a stable union. The young couple has stopped again, this time at a stall selling amulets and small statues of the gods. The man points to a figure of Hathor, the goddess of love, beauty and music, often depicted with cow horns and a sun disk. The woman nods, her eyes bright, and he purchases the small statuette for her. Their choices are significant. Hathor wasn't just any goddess, she was specifically associated with feminine love, sexuality and motherhood. By giving her a Hathor amulet, he's making his intentions pretty clear. He sees her as a potential wife and mother, and hopes for a loving, fruitful union. You shift your weight from one foot to the other, feeling the pleasant heaviness in your limbs. The heat is building now, and you notice most people are beginning to seek shade, retreating from the sun's intensifying gaze. The couple does the same, moving beneath an awning where a vendor sells cool drinks, offering a brief respite. Now let's talk about what made a person attractive in ancient Egypt, because it's both familiar and strange to modern eyes. Beauty standards existed, of course, but they were different from what you might expect. For women, the ideal was slim but with full hips, suggesting fertility, small breasts, and a symmetrical face. Men were ideally broad-shouldered with narrow hips, strong arms, and defined legs. Both genders preferred clear skin, bright eyes, and healthy white teeth. Sound familiar so far? Pretty standard stuff, right? But here's where it gets interesting. Both men and women wore makeup. Heavy black kohl around their eyes, green malachite eyeshadow, rouge for the cheeks, and henna for the lips and nails. This wasn't just for beauty. The heavy eye makeup helped protect against the glare of the sun, and even had antibacterial properties that prevented eye infections. Beauty with a practical purpose. Your gaze drifts to a woman arranging jewellery at a nearby stall. Her eyes are dramatically lined with thick black kohl, the lines extending out toward her temples, giving her an almost otherworldly look. The effect is striking against her warm brown skin. You notice that almost everyone around you wears some form of eye makeup, regardless of gender or social status. It's as common as brushing your teeth today. The heat is becoming intense now. You can feel sweat beading on your forehead and upper lip. You wipe it away, wishing you had some of that kohl to protect your eyes from the glare. Your body feels heavy in the heat, your movements becoming slower, more deliberate, almost languid. Egyptians also placed huge importance on scent. Both men and women wore perfumes and scented oils. The wealthier you were, the more complex and expensive your fragrance would be. Common scents included lotus, myrrh, frankincense, cinnamon, and various flowers and resins. Some wealthy people would even wear cones of scented fat on top of their wigs at parties. As the fat melted in the heat, it would release fragrance and condition their skin. Kind of gross by modern standards, but incredibly effective in the dry Egyptian climate. Imagine walking into a party and having scented fat drip onto your shoulders. A true sensory experience, certainly. The couple you've been observing is now seated in the shade, drinking what looks like beer from small pottery cups. They're talking animatedly, their faces bright with interest in each other, their conversation flowing easily. You feel a small surge of happiness for these two people who've been dust for thousands of years. In this moment, they're alive and falling in love. A timeless tableau. Your own body feels increasingly heavy in the midday heat. Your movements are slower, you're breathing deeper, adapting to the ancient rhythm. You find a spot in the shade and sink down, your back against a cool wall, the physical sensations of ancient Egypt, the heat, the scents, the textures, overwhelming but strangely comforting. A full sensory immersion. The domestic scene an eternal embrace. Let's talk about what happened after marriage, when the bride had moved into her husband's home and their life together began. The transition could be difficult, especially for young brides leaving their families for the first time, a bittersweet parting. But Egyptian households often included extended family, so a new wife might find herself living with her husband's parents, siblings and their families too, a built-in support system and a bustling household. The daily routine for a married couple would depend largely on their social status. For most ordinary Egyptians, dawn meant the beginning of the workday. Men would head to the fields, construction sites or workshops, while women typically managed the household. But here's an interesting thing. Women weren't confined to domestic duties. They could work outside the home as priestesses, mourners at funerals, dancers, musicians, or in various crafts. Some even worked alongside their husbands in family businesses or trades. Egyptian women had economic rights that wouldn't be seen again in Western civilization for thousands of years, a testament to their remarkably egalitarian society. Your eyelids feel heavy in the midday heat. Around you, the village has quieted as people retreat indoors for the hottest part of the day, a collective pause. The young couple has disappeared too, perhaps returning to their respective homes until evening brings cooler air and renewed energy. You decide to follow the local custom, finding a quiet, shaded spot to rest. Your body settles comfortably against the ground, the heat making your limbs feel wonderfully heavy and relaxed. Your breathing deepens naturally as you close your eyes, drifting into a light, ancient slumber. When you open them again, the quality of light has changed. The brutal midday sun has softened to the golden glow of late afternoon, painting everything in warm hues. You must have dozed off for a while, your body adapting to the Egyptian rhythm of work in the morning. Rest during the hottest hours and activity again in the evening. You rise, your muscles feeling loose and refreshed, the short rest revitalizing you. The village is coming alive again as people emerge from their homes, refreshed and ready for the cooler hours. The air is filled with conversation, laughter, the clatter of pottery being set out for the evening meal, a gentle reawakening. As the day cools, you notice more couples out walking together, talking and laughing. Public displays of affection were common and accepted in ancient Egypt. In tomb paintings and other artwork, spouses are often shown holding hands, embracing or with their arms around each other's shoulders or waists. This openness extended to their poetry as well. Love poems from ancient Egypt are surprisingly direct about desire and physical attraction. Here's one from the Chester Beatty papyrus that wouldn't feel out of place in a modern love letter. My heart flutters hastily when I think of my love, of you. It lets me not act sensibly. It leaps from its place. A truly universal sentiment. Your feet carry you toward the Nile, where people are gathering as the heat subsides. The great river gleams in the late afternoon light, a ribbon of molten gold winding through the green valley, reflecting the dying sun. Along its banks, couples stroll together, families set out simple picnics, and children splash in the shallows, their joyful shouts echoing across the water. You find a spot on the riverbank, the grass surprisingly soft beneath you. Your body settles comfortably, sinking into the natural contours of the ground. The air here is cooler, carrying the river's breath, and you feel your skin prickle pleasantly with the change in temperature. A welcome sensation. On a nearby blanket, a couple sits close together, sharing a meal from a single plate. They feed each other choice morsels, their heads bent close in conversation, an intimate dance of affection. There's an easy intimacy between them that speaks of a marriage built on genuine affection, not just social obligation. What you're seeing reflects the Egyptian ideal of marriage, a partnership based on mutual respect and, ideally, love. The ancient Egyptians believed that a good marriage should bring joy and comfort to both partners. This is reflected in their wisdom literature, where men are advised to love your wife with proper attention and make her heart glad as long as you live. A truly timeless piece of advice. Your body feels increasingly heavy and comfortable as you sit by the river, watching the life of ancient Egypt unfold around you. The rhythmic sound of the water lapping against the shore synchronizes with your breathing, which has grown deeper and more relaxed, a meditative rhythm. Women in Egyptian marriages had rights that were extraordinary for the ancient world. They could own property independently of their husbands, run businesses, testify in court, and initiate divorce. Marriage contracts protected their financial interests, ensuring they wouldn't be left destitute if the marriage ended. One marriage contract from around 200 BCE states, "If I divorce you, I will give you 20 pieces of silver and return to you all that you brought." Another specifies that the husband must provide a certain amount of grain, oil and money each month for his wife's support. These were truly progressive legal safeguards. The sun is beginning to set now, painting the sky in shades of gold, orange and deep blue, a breathtaking tableau. Along the riverbank, oil lamps are being lit, creating pools of warm light as darkness gathers. The couple you've been observing rises, gathering their belongings. They walk hand in hand back towards the village, their silhouettes merging with the growing shadows, two figures becoming one. Your own body feels wonderfully heavy now, sinking deeper into the soft grass. The gentle sounds of the river and distant voices create a soothing backdrop as night falls over ancient Egypt, enveloping you in its ancient embrace. Let's talk about the physical space of an Egyptian marriage. The home. For ordinary Egyptians, houses were typically made of mud brick, with few windows to keep out the heat. They were often simple, with a main room for cooking and daily activities, sleeping areas that might be divided by curtains, and perhaps a roof terrace where family members would sleep during hot nights, seeking cooler air. Furniture was minimal by modern standards. Reed mats served as seating during the day and bedding at night. Wealthier homes might have wooden chairs, stools and bed frames with woven cord or leather straps supporting a thin mattress. Storage consisted of baskets, pottery jars and wooden chests. The simplicity might seem austere to modern eyes, but these homes were functional, comfortable, and served as the heart of family life, built for the climate and the community. You imagine the subtle differences in each home, the unique smells of different cooking fires, the personalized arrangements of baskets and mats. The weight of the evening descends fully now, a soft blanket of darkness. Your eyes are heavy. The distant sounds of the village are fading, replaced by the gentle symphony of the night, the chirping of crickets, the rustle of palm fronds in a soft breeze. You feel your consciousness drifting, sinking into the earth beneath you, becoming part of this ancient landscape. The story of ancient Egyptian love and marriage continues to unfold in your mind, a timeless narrative of human connection, affection, and the surprising ways people found joy and meaning in a world so different from our own. You are here, now, in this ancient moment, utterly at peace,